I'm going to be talking about prolonged fasting a little bit and what that can do. That's like fasting for a couple days or longer. Boy, that can completely increase and help you generate stem cells for the immune system. So you're literally regrowing a new immune system, which is fascinating. The other really cool thing about fasting is you can generate this condition of autophagy. Autophagy means self-eat. So basically, your body cells are cleaning up old, damaged cells and rejuvenating them and recycling them into new cells. So it's kind of like a garbage disposal on steroids. You start cleaning everything up and then you're generating new cells. And this is why when people do fasting, especially routine, consistent intermittent fasting, it's definitely anti-aging. You start looking younger, your skin, your joints, inflammation goes down. And so that's another point, inflammation. I mean, think about how many diseases and conditions have inflammation. Heart disease, autoimmune disease, arthritis, they all have inflammation. All right, another benefit is that when you do intermittent fasting, you're going to save a lot of money on your grocery bills because you're not eating all these snacks. You're eating less frequently. And I calculated an average person could save anywhere between $100 to $300 to up to $600 a month just on eating less of these foods. Now, I do want to point out that this is not just about cutting calories. However, when you do intermittent fasting, the need for food becomes less and your body becomes more efficient. So you can get by on less calories. Your nutrient requirements are less because your body has adapted. And when we talk about weight loss and a slow metabolism, fasting does not slow the metabolism. It repairs this thing behind the metabolism, behind that set point that you might attempt to lose weight and like hit a certain plateau and you can't get anything less than that. That's your set point. And that's controlled by insulin resistance. So once you fast for a period of time, you can correct that and actually lower that set point. So basically, you're repairing your metabolism when you're doing fasting because behind this slow metabolism is this insulin issue. Remember, insulin is the key factor that determines whether you're going to burn fat or not. So we can actually lower our overall average insulin levels. Now, the other thing that's cool about fasting or eating less frequently is that it's going to give you a lot of extra time because you're not constantly feeding yourself and preparing meals. So that's kind of cool. And then also, another big benefit is it gives your digestive system a chance to reset. So it's not constantly having to work 24/7 because you're cramming all this food down your throat. So you have less bloating, less inflammation in the gut, and that alone is huge. Okay, so here's the starting point. Let's say you're on 3 meals a day plus snacks, okay? The first thing to do, step 1, eliminate snacks. That includes eating snacks at night and grazing. We no longer want to graze. 3 meals, okay? That's step 1. If you just did that, you would improve the body, okay? Step 2, skip your breakfast. Now, you can do this gradually or suddenly, but I think I kind of skipped something because to make this really easy, it would help to go on a low-carb diet. It's not a necessity. It will help. It's a different thing. So I do want to just talk about that because when you lower your carbohydrates, it allows you to tap into more fat because you lower insulin, because the two things that increase insulin is frequent eating and carbs. So if you lower your carbs, it's going to be easier to skip that breakfast in the morning because you go to bed and then all night long you're fasting, okay? And then you wake up and then the question is, are you really hungry? Probably not, but we just eat out of this habit or tradition. We've been told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which is a complete lie made up by people who sell food for breakfast. But typically if you do this, you wake up, the hunger is gone, you go as long as you can. Let's say when you're just starting out, you can only go till 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, then have your breakfast then, or 11. You keep doing this until you push that breakfast into your lunch and it becomes one meal. I typically have my first meal as a breakfast type thing, or like maybe like I'll do eggs or bacon and something like that. But you don't have to do that, okay? So now you're, let's say at 12 o'clock, you have your noon, your first meal. The second meal, let's say it's at 6. Now you're at 2 meals a day. So between 12 and 6 gives you a 6-hour eating window. and a 18-hour fasting window. So you could pretty much stay at this pattern. It's very easy to do. You get a lot of benefits. For most people, this is what they do, and it's fun. But let's say we want to lose weight faster. Let's say we're not getting all the benefits out of this. Number 3 is to shorten these 2 meals to a 4-hour eating window. That gives us 20 hours of fasting. Wow, you're going to get more benefits from this, more weight loss, less belly fat. So you basically just push your lunch farther in the afternoon. Let's say it's at, I don't know, at 2 o'clock. Okay, then you eat at 6 o'clock. So that will give you a 4-hour eating window. But you can also just eat at 12 and then push your dinner to 4. So there's different options depending on what you want to do. And I do want to point out this eating window. Typically people will think that, oh, it's just a window I can eat like constantly. Well, if you just didn't do that and just had like 2 meals, like starting at, let's say, at 12 and 4, and not have any snacks in between, you can get more benefit. However, when you're first starting out, don't worry about that. Let's just make it simple. Just eat what you want in that eating window, but just keep that as your eating window. So you have this 20 hours of fasting. All right, so 20 hours of fasting will give you a whole bunch of additional benefits. But let's just take it to the next level. Let's do OMAD. That means 1 meal per day. That gives you about 23 hours of fasting with a 1-hour eating window. I believe that anyone over the age of 50 should be doing this because as you get older, you don't need as much food. You're not going to be as active. And 1 meal seems to be fine. And you get this 23 hours of fasting, which produces a lot of amazing benefits. There's something else I want to add to this. It's called periodic prolonged fasting. So now, if we do this consistent pattern of intermittent fasting, and then we add in here periodic prolonged fasting. So now you're fasting for 2 days, or 3 days, or 4 days, or 5 days, or 7 days, or longer. Probably the biggest thing would be to really give yourself a chance to stimulate your stem cells for kind of immune rebuilding, or to repair your brain, or to really handle like arthritis or some type of health problem. And cancer. Out of all the things that you can do for cancer, prolonged fasting is hands down the most powerful thing you can do for cancer. In fact, I talk about this a lot in other videos that you might have to find on Rumble because I took them down. But there's a gentleman that had stage 4 prostate cancer, stage 4. They told him to go home and die. So he started to gather all sorts of information and he did all sorts of things, but the thing that really made the difference for him is a prolonged fast, like a long fast. He was able to reverse this situation, get rid of his stage 4 cancer, which is very, very serious, and he's still alive years later. And he has an entire YouTube channel, and I'll put his link down below. But he has since wrote a book about it, and he has done a lot of things. And we even worked together to fund a scientific study, which is very expensive in Europe, to substantiate a protocol. And that's for a different video. But the point is that prolonged fasting is very, very powerful to kill cancer. Because when you fast, your genetics, your genes start aligning with survival in a big way. So in other words, our bodies in the past have starved many, many times. And so as a protective mechanism, when you mimic a little bit of starvation, all sorts of survival things kick in and all sorts of diseases go in remission. You upgrade certain genes to overcome all sorts of issues. Now, let's say, for example, we're doing the fasting and we want to even make it more powerful. We want to add a couple things. I already mentioned going on low carb. That's called the ketogenic diet. Okay. If you add that, it's going to really, really, really speed things up as well. I think the combination is the perfect blend because they both complement each other. Also, if you add exercise, you can just take things to the next level because all of these actions enhance the same thing: lowering insulin, increasing growth hormone, causing more survival, creating more health in the body. I mean, when you think about when you go to the doctor, what are they doing to increase health? I'm not talking about suppressing a symptom. I couldn't come up with a lot of things. They don't really address this core foundation with eating. They don't usually address this fasting technique. They might talk about exercise in general, but it's really about handling all of the side effects from eating junk foods, alcohol, the effects of stress and all these other things. That's kind of what they're addressing. And I looked at this and I'm like, what is it about healthcare that can actually increase health? I think that's missing. Listen, don't get me wrong. If you break a bone, if you injure yourself, I mean, you need to go to the doctor. But this massive suppression of symptoms, I think the whole system is broken where we don't really focus as much on increasing health, which is a completely different thing.